Hello, and welcome to my Creative Writing Tips video series. Starting off today, we're going to go over the parts of a short story. Now, any writer will probably tell you that there are hundreds and thousands and millions of different parts of a story that you can incorporate in order to have the best story. However, today we're going to go over just the five main, most basic parts of a short story that everyone should know when they are becoming a writer. Now, these are the basic ones that you have most likely have been gone over in detail in high school, but you probably even learned these in elementary school too. So we're just doing a basic overview today. As this video series goes on, I'm going to be going more in detail over each of these parts, so like the different types of characters that you can write, dialogue that you can write, and the different types of conflict. All that stuff we're going to go over in detail as the series goes on. But today, we're just going to stick with the basics so that you just know where to start. Alright? Now, the first part of our short story is the plot. We're going to zoom in right here. Okay? Now, the plot is the most important part. It is what happens in your story. It is the action of your story. So, when someone reads your book, they're going to ask, well, what happens there? The answer will be the plot. Now, this funky little drawing that I have right here in blue is called the plot arc. You most likely have learned this in school, or this is just a review for you. But the plot arc is what makes your story interesting. This is the ups and downs of your story. This horizontal line here at the beginning, this is what's called your exposition. Please excuse my horrible handwriting. I'm still getting used to this nice little tablet thing that I got here. Now, the exposition is at the beginning of your story for a reason. This is where all of your characters, your setting, all those things are introduced. You get to tell your readers just what you want them to know about your characters and the setting here in the exposition, and this has to be detailed enough and interesting enough that they want to keep reading after they read this first paragraph or this first page. Now, as this little line starts getting an incline here, this is what's called the rising action. This is where your conflict is introduced. So if your character learns that they have cancer and that they need to start taking chemotherapy, that would be a part of the rising action. If your character learns that they need to help their mother pay the bills, so they enroll themselves into a boxing tournament, something like that. That's the rising action. Conflict is introduced, and the tension starts getting heightened, and you start getting nervous for your character. Are they going to be able to solve this problem? Now, this little peak up here, this little mountain peak, this is where you have your climax. And if you know anything about stories, movies, anything like that, the climax is the highest point, the most important part of your story, the most exciting part of your story. This is where your character goes to surgery for their cancer and gets their tumor removed. Or this is where your character fights that championship boxing match and wins against their rival, or maybe their rival beats them. Whatever the action is, the climax is the highest point that's supposed to get your readers on the edges of their seats and wants them to keep turning those pages. It's the most exciting point. Now, this little funky line here that I couldn't draw straight, this is the falling action. This is what happens after the climax starts relaxing down, the action is starting to be over, and everyone is starting to take that exhale after this big heightened event. And then this other horizontal line is your denouement, this funky word that everybody always trips up on and pronounces wrong. This is a fancy word for resolution. This is where all the conflict that happens in your story starts getting resolved and the problems are solved. So whether your character wins that prize money to help their parents pay their bills, or if your character is told that their cancer is completely gone, whatever that is, it's resolved here and then your story comes to a close. Your character should also learn something in this resolution, and we're going to talk about that a little later when we talk about theme. Now, the second part of the story is our setting. The setting, my dear friends, is as simple as this. It is time and place. Now, a lot of times people will teach you that setting is just place, but time is also important, and I'll tell you guys why. Say, for instance, you want to have a story that is set in my hometown of Georgia. Georgia all the way down south. Okay? Now, It's important to have time and place with your setting because Georgia in the 1950s is completely different than Georgia would be in, let's say, the year 2057 in the future. Okay? Or at least we can hope that it'll be different than the segregation and racism that happened in the 1950s. Okay? When you introduce your setting to your characters, you want to be very specific about the things that your character sees, feels, how the people in the setting are talking, what it smells like, anything like that is going to be those details that makes your reader want to keep reading. So be as specific as you can when it comes to your time and your place. All right, number 3, one of the easiest things, your characters. Your characters are, of course, the people or animals or objects that you animate in the action of your story. So, you're thinking about the action, it happens to your characters, okay? The second video of this series is going to be about the different types of characters. So we're going to go over that because depending on how important this person is to the plot of your story, your character is going to be different. Okay? They're going to have different qualities that either make them a main character or allow them to fall back into the background. And we'll talk about that next time. Character is very simple. Alright, number 4. Number 4 is your conflict. This is sometimes just as important as the plot itself because the conflict is going to drive the plot forward. The conflict is simply the problem of the story. Okay? What goes wrong in your story? Alright? For example, the conflict is going to be who your character has to fight to win the money. Or it has to be that needle or that doctor that your character with cancer has to deal with. Okay? So, whatever happens in the story that makes your character worried or that makes your character fight till the end, something that they have to get through to learn their lesson or to become a better person. Okay? Now, your story needs to have conflict. Some people may fight with me and say, well, I can have a story without conflict. It's not going to be a very good story if it does not have conflict. So, for instance, I'll give you an example. If I were to write a story about a kid who goes to the grocery store, he gets $5 from his mom and he wants to buy his favorite type of cereal. So he goes to the cereal aisle, he picks up his Cinnamon Toast Crunch, he goes to the checkout, he buys his cereal, then he walks home, and then he eats the cereal. The end. If that was a story, that would be the most boring story that I've ever read because there's no conflict in it. However, if I changed the story up a little bit and I said, little Billy went to the grocery store with $5 in his hand to buy his favorite cereal, Cinnamon Toast Crunch. However, when he got to the cereal aisle, he found out that the store that he went to was missing his Cinnamon Toast Crunch. When Billy saw this empty shelf, he got really upset and really sad, and he almost started crying because he did not find his Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Now, the light at the end of the tunnel was the grocery store employee who came down the aisle just in time to restock the Cinnamon Toast Crunch. And he lived happily ever after. Okay, now you see, that's a very silly story, but because we went through that struggle of Billy not finding his Cinnamon Toast Crunch at first, it makes the story more interesting than the first one where he just found it easily, went home, happy day. Okay, you want that conflict to create tension in your story and get your audience intrigued by what's happening so they have to guess, is he going to get the cereal, is he not going to get the cereal, what's going to happen? Okay, conflict is very important. Now, the last part of the story that we're going to talk about today before we end this video is theme. Theme is also important to your story because it is what your characters learn or what your reader can take away from your story. Okay? Both of those things. I'm just going to put CH, what your character learns. Alright? Now, a lot of people will mistake theme for a topic, and when they're asked, what is the theme of the story, they say something like, the theme is love. Okay? Now, love is a topic, okay? It's not a theme. When you're thinking about theme, it has to be, what about love did we learn? Okay? So for instance, taking it a step further, you can say, love sucks. You might learn that from Romeo and Juliet. After reading Romeo and Juliet, you find out love sucks and I hate it and I'm not going to fall in love. That's something that you take away from the story. Or, if you have another story, another theme could be family is always there. okay, is normally going to be a statement or a sentence that you can apply to your everyday life and not just the story, okay? So, you want your character to learn something, but a good story always has something that your reader can also learn, okay? Or else we wouldn't be reading these books. We have to be able to take away something from these stories, or else it'll just be random entertainment and not really mean something to us, all right? Now, I'm going to zoom out so you can see all 5 of these parts real big for you. All right? We have plot, setting, characters, conflict, and theme. As this video series goes on, I'm going to go more into detail on each of these so that you can see how to actually put them inside your stories and make them more interesting and make them more detailed. Hopefully this helped. What I would like you guys to do after watching this video, give it a like or a share if you enjoyed it. Or just give me a comment about something that you would actually like to learn in the future about creative writing and short story writing and all that fun stuff. I want to share my knowledge, the little knowledge that I do have, and I want to include you guys in the process of my writing and stuff too. So let's make this an interactive experience. Tell me what you guys want to have in this series as we go on, and I hope you guys learned something today. Hopefully you have a lovely day and you can start putting this to practice soon. See you guys later.